Hey, Brainiacs, there's a quick Encanto update. This is the show you come to for those. This episode is actually all about the elements of PTSD and recovery that you find in the movie Encanto. Abi Perez from the Friends and Friends podcast joins me. We're going to get right into that, but I wanted to let you know real quick that the Disney Studios, in preparation for the Oscars, has made the Encanto art concept book available online, at least for a limited time. I don't know if it'll be there forever. It's an interactive document that you can view. And I'm going to put the link, because it's long, I'm going to put the link in both the Twitter feed, I'll put a post about it, and also on the Broken Brain Facebook page. So if you go to Facebook, look for Broken Brain. If you go to Twitter, at Break a Brain, as all is one word, Break a Brain, then you will find a link to the Encanto art concept book. And as I'll say in the episode, Encanto makes me cry pretty much any random line or song. And I actually found it very emotional to look over how they created it and what they put into it. So enjoy that and enjoy this episode. Abi Perez from the Friends of Friends podcast, back again on the show. Yeah. You're now a frequent flyer on the Broken Brain.
Yeah, I like to. It's my fun time. Like, I enjoy it. Oh. I'm here to let it out and just hang out. I still talk to Meg. We chat back and forth on Instagram. Like, I have gotten really good relationships out of here. So
good.
I'm gonna out. Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things about doing podcasts is actually getting cool people, meeting cool people, but then having them meet each other too. I feel like that's my big fascination with it is like, oh, you should talk to this person, other person. It's a little, usually I use their names, not just other person. I try to, personalize it that much at least. So
you just say person A and then person B.
You can only the first 26 people. I was going to say 20, because then I run out
20
of letters.
Whatever. Yeah.
Is there 26 letters in the alphabet or 25? All of a sudden I realized I didn't remember.
I don't know, because I have the N with the squiggly line on top, and then I have the double L's, and I don't know what you have, but I don't know what I have either.
That's what you get for knowing a lot of stuff. Jeez. You have a whole other language at your disposal to use, and I envy that.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at learning languages.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I do math in Spanish, and then I have to vomit it in English, and I'm like, the months in English, I have to be like, what month is it? And in Spanish, I'm like, really, really fast. Like, I don't know. There's some things that, like, just even to pronounce or to remember the order, it's still like crazy. I'm like, wait, what was that?
It's probably, it makes sense, right? There's the default of whatever, not just what people learn first, but what makes more sense, right? Because a lot of the Spanish structure makes more sense than English, doesn't it?
To me, it does.
Well, right, I guess.
Because for me, then, there's all those different ways of, like, I don't know, for me, even to just make something cute, I just make it diminutive, it's just like it ends with like ITO or whatever. And in Spanish, I say that everything is like so cute, but it's hard to say that everything is cute in a certain way. In English, I don't even know how to explain that, but
I think I get you. You just have to, because it doesn't work as well to just throw the phrase at the end of everything and it's so cute.
I have more fun. I have more fun in the slang too. Like, the slang it's my home. So
I was wondering, and I was saving it for kind of this discussion too. We're talking, of course, about the Disney movie Encanto, and especially about some of the emotional relationship. And I think, once again, I feel like this comes up often on this program, is trauma. Trauma is woven into the plot line of this story, and they're doing some excellent things nowadays with trauma-based storytelling. They don't usually throw it up front like that, but I was watching this, and we were talking about even some of like the Marvel TV shows, and I think I was watching. Oh, I don't remember what it was. Anne with an E on Netflix. It's like an Anna Green Gables reboot, and I was like,
even the movie.
Yeah, exactly. There's like some excellent work being done telling stories that are like full of trauma, basically people bumping into each other's trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You kind of have to expose some of that to become genuinely relatable. That's just part of it. People relate to like that thing. I remember when they released Tiana into the movie theater. Me, I mean, she's not Mexican, but I was like, she's of color. We're there. Like I was, you don't know like how many things could relate that don't even phase anybody. I didn't phase. I wasn't always like freaking white princesses. I didn't even think about it. I was just like, those are really cool too. Those are so cool. I learned English watching the other ones. They helped me a lot. Yeah. So it's just, you just have to take from where it's actually helpful and positive for you, I guess. And back to the movie, like, as I told you at first, that's part of what I was having a really bad day when I first saw the first piece of it. And I got into it and it was very emotional, very warm, very whatever. And if you aren't there with that, like emotionally, if you're not there, like, it's like, whoa, I don't want all this emotional stuff. Cause like at least for me, when I get really, kind of depressed or in a bad mood, I tend to kind of not be like wanting to, I'm not interested in finding cute puppies. I'm not interested in doing all that. I'm just like, so I'm just like in that limbo of grace. And so then when I'm like not in that space, I'm like, but then my kids come back. I feel like they're so cute. I'm back at that like thing where I'm like nurturing and I'm there. And then I watch it and their reactions of how they respond to the movie or that they start dancing to the little beats and stuff. It's those things that pull together for me that it's just, again, you relate to the trauma. You're watching the movie, they're watching this thing. And I'm actually like, it's really cool to see that but for instance, that grandma wasn't so nice in this movie. That was my story. Grandma's so nice everywhere else. They're so cute, adorable, but mine wasn't. And so that was where I was like, okay, you got me. But that took a while to come in. And I didn't see that when I was having a bad day. So it was like,
because we don't get a context for her not being, of why she's not so nice. She's just not nice at first. And one of the things that I think we can roll this up to some of the trauma too. There's no villain in this movie. Like there isn't, right? The villain is as us maybe is the characters struggle against themselves with fear and doubt and things like that. And for a movie to not have a villain and be this compelling, right? This is like way more compelling to me than some of the traditional, here comes a bad guy, here comes the good guy, that kind of thing. And so, but yet, but we do see her being strict and mean and rigid and all those things. And it's really interesting to me because with grandma, like they throw it up in the front, there was some tragedy, but it kind of glosses. It's like, oh yeah, my husband didn't make it with us. And then when they show that's story,
why she's so strong.
Right. Yeah. It's presented as just, oh, she's strong because of this. And it's like it's the Cliff Notes version of her life. Right. And then when it's retold at the end, it's more like this is a horrific tragedy that she watched happen right in front of her. Right.
Yeah.
And deeply scarring, and to dismiss that part of it is why we didn't understand her yet, and why Maribel maybe didn't understand her yet completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my mind, like, it was so that's where I'm like, it takes even like a different mindset to even understand some of these things. Cause when you watch it in terms of like, I don't know, because again, like to me, it's super sacred to like respect the like Latin Hispanic culture. I watch it with that eye where I'm like, I'm so proud of it. Like, it's so exciting to have our thing out there and stuff. And then it's also very conflicting because all those things do happen. And then in fact, before you even mentioned it, other people had been like, did you watch that movie? Like, I can relate to this and this and this and this and this. And I was like, man, I haven't watched it. I need to watch it. And now in more of a reflective way, they were relating to some of the emotions of like the levels of the family, the hierarchy that they related to those people and different things. And that made me like really like, oh, that sucked, because that is our culture. And it sucks that it's an algorithm people make movies about in terms of like the manufacturing. But I think it would bring out very interesting conversations. Because I mean, obviously, you know, there was that conversation, there was that understanding of generations of why that was like some sort of discipline of like anger or whatever. But at one point then, like in the movie, they were fine afterwards. But then when you don't see that in your personal life, like it's really hard. That's also really hard. And you just like, I'm glad that, you know, I get to share this moment with my kids because like that's, you know, you're meant to do that. And that's where the community, the entertainment is going. So it's important to highlight it like that. And I think they did a very like clean job of that, of like really elegantly putting it out there. But it is really hard. And like a lot of people, like how it started, they just put a face and it's fake and it's fake and it's fake and it's fake. That's kind of what might happen. And it doesn't really just resolve because people have bad habits. So it's like, you know, it's a very huge thing to deal with. But I guess the fact that they are okay doing that now, it's not just like the girl going after the guy. Like they've been changing that a lot more. It's like not those, you know, those kinds of movies are more away. So it's like, I don't know. Is it like a reflection of like society, you know?
The other, yeah, no. And the other thing about this is it's not a romance story exactly. There's all sorts of different relationships in it. And there are people who are in love. I mean, I guess there's a romance element with, is it Dolores? And, you know, I mean, that's kind of there, but it's not the main drive. And the hero isn't defined by her ability to win a prince, for example, obviously.
Right.
She's actually defined by her own superpower, which is bringing everybody together and everything, which we can
in fact,
get into.
In fact, that made me proud in a different way. Cause I was like, there's no shame in going, hey, that guy doesn't work out for that one. It doesn't mean that he's out of the line. You gotta go get the man.
Even he didn't have to be, because even he was, he could have been the Gaston of the story, right? A big dumb hunk, and it's like, no, he's just a big dumb hunk, but he's a really swell guy, and you find out, oh no, he's kind of a deep soul, actually, you know. Everybody. One of the things that I think is a trend that you see nowadays, which is a good trend, we've gone down the road of entertainment just being so dark, and we still do it. And trust me, I can go dark sometimes. I'll watch, you know, I'm going to probably go see the new Batman, whatever. But when that comes out, you know, and that looks pretty heavy.
Yeah.
But we've also swung back to where there is an appreciation for a story where everybody in the story is a nice person who's trying to be a good person. And they're not always nice in the way they act, but deep in their core, that's who they are. They're trying to go through their life and be good, right? Even in this movie, the harshness that exists is harshness that exists because of, when you really get down to it, it's because of love and fear, right? I don't want my family to be hurt, so I'm going to do something that hurts them. No, not on purpose, but, you know, like I'll protect you by not ever letting you out, you know, kind of a thing or whatever. So it's really powerful that way.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what also made me think in different ways. Like you're saying, it allowed people to be their worst, their best. But the relationship even that broke out, the one, in fact, it was more like it was comfortable now to say, I actually don't want to be in that relationship. I'm about to make a mistake. That one was really big for me because at that age, there's not that complexity, but I'm sure certain in terms of how data shows like that there are so many domestic violence situations that a lot of kids can then at least measure like, I'm stuck here. This is bad. That's how I saw it as a kid. Like you are a child. You have no control over all this. Those people are still lovable. They still deserve love. They still deserve respect. But when you grow up, there is, you know, you can go and hide if you really want to, but that's their job to still love you, whether you do that or not, because that's part of like the loyalty that there should be. And so it's like, I don't know, that was also very interesting to me because there's, first of all, not a movie out there for little kids that tells little girls to say, oh, I actually didn't want to do that. You're right. Like I was acting like an asshole. You're right, because we're meeting this status quo. At what time, what's the time that we stop playing the fucking thing, like the gaming, excuse me, because it's more like, it's just like a pattern and it doesn't work for everybody and we know it and we feel ashamed of people who are poly or we don't talk about it as much. It's not mainstream. It's like so still like there's so many ways of having relationships that we don't know and it's really hard for everybody to do it in general. But even that, like it's cool to open that door to little kids at that age because they're getting into those relationships very young now too.
And one of the things that I kind of laughed when I thought this was probably for the audience, and I'll go ahead and say probably for the white people watching. In the beginning, when the kids are asking Mirabel, they're saying, "Hey, wow, there's so many of you. How do you keep them straight?" And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if a little kid in a Colombian village is saying that. Like, how do you keep all your cousins straight? Because that's probably for those of us in the audience that are like, that's not what I'm used to, right? And so you have that kind
I love
of
that part.
And one of the things that impresses me is how big like the cast is, because you see that's like a given in a lot of storytelling is that, boy, there's too many people. How are we going to keep them all straight? And I think one of the things that made this work is because they understood a dynamic that we have to look for when we're doing kind of like therapy and counseling, which is the relationship of the family is like its own character, and all these other people branch off from it. They all fit in to each other's lives. And that, I think, does a lot of work for the storyteller, because the way they all fit into each other's lives tells us more about who they are. And in this case, the story goes, hey, you all fit in this way. And then Mirabel goes through and discovers, oh, wait, no, that's not as good a fit as we thought it was. Oh, I can't be this strong all the time. I don't need to be this beautiful, perfect all the time. I don't need to be, can I be just kind of quiet over here all the time? And actually breaking the rules of those roles and saying like, how many of these roles in the family do we fall into as like really coping mechanisms, right? For protecting the family.
It's just because bad habits. I think it's just more in that, but that's where, like, to me, and that's where I have opportunities in these things to explain it to the girls. Like, look, girls, these relationships, like, they remind me of these things that happen. Like, I think it's important that they know that these things are real. It's not just this imaginary thing, because however they perceive it, they'll, as an adult now, I remember different things just now being a parent. Like, oh, now I know why they were so mad at me for being so irresponsible, And so then I dig in and, it's like, you guys have to have hard conversations because, everybody out there in the world is also going to be really hard. But the fact that your family is also harsh and cold just to meet some sort of standard, just because it's cool to be kind of a jerk, like just sarcastic all the time, it's irresponsible that I don't say anything based on how I know that, like, just words impact our mind, our state of being, or everything, like in terms of mindfulness. Like, so that's why, like, when you say it's a very big topic to talk to kids about in terms of like all of these complex situations, but it's like irresponsible not to really, they're experiencing this like crazy. And so many kids are now being raised by the internet and they are seeing this on the internet too. That's still like grow up and go, why the hell did you let me stay on this thing this whole time? Someone's going to wonder. And that's going to be a weird conversation. So it's very interesting that, we have to have all these conversations, and there's ways of doing it with little kids. And they understand what being nice and hugged and special and this is my birthday. They know all those different feelings. They understand the complexity of that. But when we explain it even from ourselves, sometimes to them, they're like, wow, like I didn't realize that. Like, I didn't know that about you. There's different times where like my boyfriend will share like a fact about Mario that he liked when he was a kid, and Luke, his son, he just like will say, that's my favorite character now, and I'll pick him, and that's very special to me, and that's he admires that. I didn't see that growing up. Like, my grandparents thought all that stuff was the devil. So for me, it's like mending all of these different things that I'm like, this is such a cool relationship. Like, that's respectable. Like, why would you make your kid feel no more like, you even don't have the time. We always say, we don't have the time. I don't have the time to sit down and do these things because we're doing all of these like blind things, like it's just, we're just kind of out of habit. And I'm guilty of that. And that's where I'm just like, sometimes time runs out fast. My kids are teenagers and they're like, they're dating, they're doing all these crazy things. They're asking me stuff that I wouldn't have known at their age. So I'm just like, oh, I have to talk to them really awkwardly, but like right now. And I like wave like safety sexually all the time. I don't know what to do.
And just the concept of talking about it. Well, and it reminds me of this is one of the songs in the movie is Luisa's song about being strong, right? Mm-hmm. And it's one of the more powerful limits. I'm going to call everything powerful because just about every scene of this movie makes me cry. But when she, it's funny how Luisa at first is like, I'm fine. And she has to ask her maybe a couple times, but then all of a sudden she sings this huge song about how she's not fine at all. She is not feeling fine. And at the end, she just hugs her, right? As soon as she's done singing, she just gives her a big hug. And it's like, all that took was for someone to ask, right? For someone to say, how are you really doing? Not good. I'm fine. Are you really? Yeah. Nope. But it took that follow-up to communicate and say, no, tell me what you're really doing. You're over here hucking donkeys left and right and, picking up bridges and everything that she's doing. And everybody just assumes that, that's you, right? You're here. You're good. You can just do that for us.
Yeah.
Nobody ever asked her is what it seems like.
No, and that's why, like, it was very interesting to see all those things because in our culture and so many different cultures, even still at my job, we struggle with that like hustle mentality. It's that same thing where it's like, I can keep going. I'm just helping. I'm doing good. I'm doing all of these things. And it's shameful that you have a minute sitting down because like, well, I also have to have a hobby. I have to do all these things. And it's like, it is hard for everybody. There's a really hard balance in doing all this stuff. Like today, my day was really crappy, so busy. But in terms of that, as I went through it, I told people around me, hey man, I'm like struggling right now. I'm having a really hard day. That's the favor that I could do to communicate and say, I'm just going to have to be potato today because I can't do anything right now. I am nothing. Don't do anything with me. I'm drained. And that's fair to say, but instead that comes out on accident in different ways and poorly a lot more times than we'd like to admit, at least for me. And it's something that I work on, but I feel proud. I'm like, hey, you guys, I really tried my best to not really be shitty. And that's what counts. That's where I think like from this whole movie, you could point out like, look, this is how it would be ideal that everybody receives each other positively, eventually. And somebody, goes, yeah, that was a mistake. We weren't supposed to do that. But most people don't. They really like are stuck in their ways. There's so many people that don't get that. And that won't be the real resolution. And then, somebody with depression can really make that extreme in their mind because it's a family relationship. Like one of the things that is like really, they actually on the Sunday show, I don't know if you even watched that, but it was like a CBS Sunday show. I watched that with my book to be like, but this consistency in my life that is really cute. Just like watching like wholesome stories. And so they have a bunch of wholesome stories and in there, they have a story where it's just like you just share different bits of data. And one thing of data that came up was like that families have a really hard time, like getting through different challenges. Like one of the things that is really hard of what people, end up in like a bunch of different litigations, for example, blended families, like it's just really hard for people to get over that in terms of just the way that we are societally, like our hashtags are stronger than our bond. Like, and it's like, our hashtags are supposed to be the opener of this conversation where it's more of a teaching moment. Anything outside of that, I don't want to do that because it feels like an attack. And I get drained from that stuff because people are just like yelling at me. I had that with, unfortunately, religion. Like it was just like pushed down and I don't dismiss that people love it and it works. And I have felt really good feelings, but it still is nice to say to some people and they're all like, oh, that's really cool. Yeah, well, I did this. And it's not even a thing to them. That's such an easy thing to do. It's just I share my thing, and it's okay that yours is different, even if it's super terrible. I'm going to eventually be like, yeah, I mean, I disagree with some things, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little about some of the magic, like the superpowers, so to speak, in this movie that you see the people
Yeah.
have. What are some
Yeah.
thoughts you have about what the people could do and what that represents to the family?
For Bruno, that was my most favorite because he's the most like out there. That's the one that I love the most because he's
You
just
want to
very,
talk
a lot
about
of people.
Bruno? We will talk about Bruno.
I know, but we did. I know. But, you have to relate. He's very like spiritual in his own way. And that's really cool. People don't have that. And sometimes even now people get dismissed for believing in a religion or in a belief like, oh, it's like nothing. And if you had a bad experience, that's not even the thing. So it's really cool to see that he was very spiritual, like gave me shaman vibes and indigenously. I love that, like that it's even put out there in that way, because that's a lot of the reason why when I'm depressed, like going to things of my own culture really helps. And that's why I was like resisting. I'm like, I'm not going to resist this movie. I'm going to watch it and enjoy it. And I know it, but I need to actually enjoy
that. Well, and that's a great perspective on that. You see that almost like a shaman aspect to his personality of bringing a spiritual vibe to it. I felt like one of the most emotional moments in the movie for me was that plate. That, if you know what I mean, the plate that Bruno has when she notices that he has drawn a plate that looks like the family plates pattern, right by his own table. He's drawn it directly onto the table and has a crack in the wall where he can watch everybody have dinner together. And it was like, that was one of the most heartbreaking moments where you see him believing that he's not good for the family. And so he's restricting himself from being there, but he wants to be as close to the family as possible.
Yeah. They had that whole song where it's like, because you're a weirdo, like that's a thing. That's one of the biggest things that you even see on TikTok now. Like people that are trending on TikTok, it's because they're weird and like they'll go in there and complain, oh, I can't relate to a bunch of things. And it's like, nah, you go get it. Like that's why, if that weirdo or whoever, they want to be a shaman and they want to believe in this thing and that works for them. And that's cool. Listen to them. Like, what's your problem to not? Maybe you need to hear something about that maybe that's part of like the deja vu that you had like 3 months later. That would have made sense if you had sat there and listened.
There's a lot of embracing the roles that you find for yourself that are true to you in this movie. One of the things I thought about with Bruno, as I was thinking about us having this conversation about some of the psychological aspects, I had this weird take on the family where I looked at the whole family and said, let's bundle everybody up together and say, okay, what if this is a case of PTSD, like the whole family, right? That is being carried on, and everybody is playing a role and a function, right? Bruno is looking for this information. He's providing prophecy into the mix. He's saying, here's what's coming, but he gets blamed for it, right? And it reminded me of this study that I read a long time ago. It mentioned that people with depression, they usually are treated as if they have a negative outlook on the world. But actually, when they look at the way people with depression track things around them, they actually notice things more accurately than people who don't have depression. Now, that sounds a little depressing, but people who are depressed tend to see things the way they are, but then they are told by other people, oh, you just have a negative outlook. And so that pinged in my mind when I was thinking about Bruno, who's just like, oh, hey, this, and this is coming, or watch out for this or whatever. And everyone's like, oh, geez, Bruno, come on, don't ruin things. You're the worst. And it's like, well, I was just trying to tell you what I'm seeing. And for what he sees, he gets sort of reprimanded, right?
Yeah. And how many times, I mean, I was just talking to somebody. I have like this like college mentor who is way smarter than me, that she just talks to me through a program that I hear at. And so they put her with me and they just have me teach her about different things, but generationally we're very similar. And culturally, I would have paid money to actually have somebody like that, because in terms of understanding the nuances of working in any office, if anybody relates out there, I'm sorry. But So, I help her out. And culturally, sometimes we're like, oh my gosh, you had to translate for your family too. Like, it's very random, but it's these nuances that, like, in terms of, we grow up and we have all these anxieties and we try to warn people however we can, because we all have some sort of anxiety, right? And at school, we're being told, hey, your daughter, they talk too much. Hey, your kids, they don't sit down. Hey, your whatever, they need to stop that. And the parents, some go, oh, let me put them on meds. Oh, they don't develop that exercise of learning the discipline. And we all need medicine, we all need things. But even though with my own medicine that I take, it's still like a learning process. I still have to have good habits. If I am still, having a really hard time, it's really hard. And doctors don't tell you that. And it's a super, super long process. And unfortunately, we're all different, and beautifully, we're all different. But that's why we need to hear each other, even if somebody is awkward to talk to.
It's a great point.
She was, yeah. A lot of people, because of that status quo, they're like, oh, this person, like, no, I don't. I need to have a drink before I do this. And no, I have social anxiety too, everyone. But it's even in these conversations where I'm like, hey, if I came out okay, great. Then if they want it, good.
Well, there's a mentality sometimes. It's like, well, what if everybody just did that? What if everybody just got up and did whatever they thought was the funny or good or right at the time? And, it would be like this chaotic whatever. And it's like, well, sometimes that's okay. I mean, you look and I people think this is weird whenever I say this. So I go to, like, if I go to a school and I see the way that we train people to act in school, I understand you got to get the lesson done. You got to get them from point A to point B. I understand all that. But when I see a group of kids that I like walk in a hallway and it's like, everybody get in line, everybody look right in front of you, don't talk to anyone around you, don't touch anyone around you, don't make any noise. And I'm like, I can only think of two places in the world where you're going to need that exact skill set. One's the army, jail. The other's jail. Right? Those are the only two that I can think of. And it's like, in a way, and look at that. That's the way, and not everybody has this insight, but that's the way they make people walk in jail. They're going from place to place, right? Because we don't know what they're going to do. We better control them. And it's like, oh, okay, that's a pretty early message that we get as far as that goes. And, the fact that we have to spend so much time, and the value of the value you bring as a citizen to the world when you're a little kid is your ability to sit down and shut up. And it's like, wow, oh, that's kind of heavy, right? That's my worth, right? And the better I am at that, the more brownie points I get. And
yeah. So I've had this conversation with my kids. I'm like, look, I'm sorry I did that to you. And now that's why I'm really traumatized, and I'm trying to help you catch up on the fact that, like, I may not have done the best job. So if you're uncomfortable, let's try to avoid those uncomfortable things. And I'm going to have to be okay with it, because I love you and I want to get to know you, and I want to get to be a part of your life for as long as I can, because that's what being open is.
And I don't know, I struggle with this with my own kids too, because it's like, they do have to get through school, and I don't want them to like be flunked out because they're not behaving in class. At the same time, I'm like, no, I don't want them to lose. One of the beautiful things in this movie, one of the scenes I really like is, once again, all of them. You'll notice I'll say this with every scene. This is one of the best scenes. It's just one of them. Pick it at random. But the one with Mirabelle and Isabella, when she stops making roses and starts making cactus, right? Or she starts making these various.
That was my daughter's favorite.
Yeah, these various a different kind of beauty that starts to emerge, right? That's more complicated. It's more nuanced. And so I love that. But then it's like, how do we carry that out? How do they go to school and just be yourself, and what, get in trouble? Oh, well, no, I mean, don't get in trouble.
It's so hard. It's not one conversation. Yeah, it's so many. That's why I'm telling you, like, the movie opens up so many different conversations where my adult mom friends came and told me that they were like bombarded with the fact that they are this specific character and they don't want to be a pushover anymore. And how do they do that not in a mean way? And how are they learning their own balance? And we're 30 years old and we don't know our own balance on controlling our time for ourselves, our work, our family. I sometimes with my culture, I'm like, I'm glad, unfortunately, that my family sometimes doesn't talk to me because it sounds so stressful. Some people are so insulting to each other and demeaning that I'm like, no. And I tell the girls, look, that's not what I want to be in your life. Like, I made mistakes based on all of these bad habits. Let's not repeat that. And these are going to be weird conversations. I'm trying my best. Like, let's try our best. And that's why you're going to try your best to go to school and better yourself because I want you to be better than me. I struggled, dude, and I tried. So please, whether you have a really good idea, but this is a certain path that might take you to stability, and I want that for you. That's how I have those conversations. But it's so many different things that they're gonna roll their eyes to it. But you have to catch them, you have to watch them, you have to teach them from different things, so many things for them to believe it. And it's also consistency because you're gonna be the person who's there when their friends go and do different things, have different relationships. And that's a reminder that has to be made to them. They don't appreciate that. We don't appreciate that. I could have been reminded of that, but it's hard to have those conversations when people aren't habitually vulnerable out of appearances. That's what it really is really hard.
And so I want to get your opinion on my little PTSD theory here. When I look at some of the people, so I obviously mentioned about Bruno, and let's look at like some of the symptoms of anxiety disorders and PTSD, right? Is like hypersensitivity. And I think of like Dolores, right? She can hear everywhere, right? She can hear all these different things. She's always gathering information. And we get this like hyper awareness with anxiety where we start to notice everything around us, right? We get we got Camilo, and I don't know. I just thought of this because I don't know languages that well. The first thing I thought of with his power was the chameleon, which is a thing I think of a lot with depression, PTSD, anxiety. We become a chameleon.
You're a people pleaser.
Right. His name sounds like it too. That's what I just realized.
Yeah.
and
yeah.
And then you've got
I didn't think about it.
You've got who is it? Is it Peppa? Peppa? Did I say that right? With the weather?
Is that the weather?
Yeah. She
was like, that's me when I'm having a really bad day because I'm like, whoa, no. Like my body, I feel the tension. I feel like when I'm having a bad day and I'm like, no, we're actually fine. Start checking, like start doing your mental check. And it's so crazy. I saw that and I was like, oh. So it's just different things. Like you can learn from that. Like that's where I tell my kids, like, unfortunately, these are my hormones. That lady is so crazy. Like that's where I can say, I'm insane too. I have my moods. We all get hangry. Yeah.
I love the message that Bruno gives her at the end, right? When they connect and he says, hey, when I told you it looked like rain, I just meant you looked a little sweaty or whatever. And he's like, but then I also wanted you to know to let it go, let it rain, let it, hurricane, let it, you don't have to hold it back. And she spends so much of the movie with this superpower that she is almost ashamed of as soon as it starts to go, right? Oh, it's starting to rain. Happy thoughts. Like she's supposed to kind of keep it tamped down. And to me, that reminds me a lot of like those of us with anxiety or trauma, which there's a lot of actual really good abilities and coping abilities people develop, but they learn to doubt themselves. Kind of like that. I can control the weather, but I better not. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. You're just like, you kind of go with it. And that's kind of the thing where like, even if people are awkward and difficult, have those conversations. Like you're going to get something out of the experience. That's all part of being in the moment and appreciative because more beauty does come out. Yeah.
It's like the flowers versus, the house looks so much cooler with all the Julieta producing all the different,
everybody.
The different hyacinths I think come out. There's all sorts of different flowers and things, and I thought that was great because once again with the anxiety, there's the surface level, Band-Aid level. It's okay. Look at all these roses we've put everywhere, but then she gets into it and she's like, no, there's this nuance, and it's kind of like messy, and it's kind of like trying to experiment with different things, and they don't all have to look the same, and it's so much prettier and more interesting after, right?
Yeah. If there's a hierarchy anywhere, it's like getting weird. Like everybody should be able to say, hey, like could we switch it around? Like, it's okay. A kid could say, hey, could we have dinner in front of the TV? That's all right. You want to do that? Hey, you want to do that? It's okay.
Yeah.
Because maybe that's what they want, because they should be able to go anywhere and say that's what they want. Because, I don't want them to continue being the yes, yes, yes person for the wrong things. Why would I tell them to be quiet or be this thing, or just go get married and not have the ability to say, no, I don't want to. This is a bad idea. We're actually very toxic for each other. Maybe we should not do this.
So how do you practice that with your kids? Because I have the same goal where I don't want to step on their ability to be themselves or be creative. But then on a bad day when it's like, I want to bust out paint and do a bunch of weird stuff, it's like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. Or, like it's hard. I just wonder, because you have a lot of passion about that, of letting your kids be themselves.
Yeah.
And so how do you
like even, I try a lot of different things, but I approached it very humbly first, because I was just like, I was more tense. I was more of a my kids were those kids that were very well behaved, but it wasn't without going, hey, you guys better be chill because blah, 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 blah. Now I'm like, go be yourselves, go explore, go do this. Like, I wish I would have done that. And now I see the damage that is from that. They have anxiety talking to random people about certain things, about their teachers, for instance, in terms of like, I didn't turn in my homework. They feel like, oh, no, I'm going to get grounded or in trouble, or something's going to get taken away my phone. Where that doesn't work eventually. They just fear getting in trouble, and they get better at lying or being weird. And so I have to tell them, like, I want to get to know what works for you, because this is my job. Like, as a parent, it's neglectful that I don't look out for you. So we have to do this together. And all this is doing is just teaching you how to be at least okay. But it's hard, because when you are having a bad day, you're going to be short and you don't want to go and do the thing. And that's part of learning to teach them how to like manage those feelings. They're also going to want to tell somebody to go F off. Like, they should want to do that and be able to, and be in a safe space to express their own neutrality to doing anything. That's fair too.
That's a really good point, because, think of the life skill. And I think, especially for my daughters, think of the life skill of being able to say, nope, get away from me, not to
give me a raise.
Exactly. To self advocate and to negotiate, or to put up a wall against a dangerous, toxic person, or a dangerous, toxic dude, or whatever. And
being able to tell a scam. One of my kids just fell for one of those Instagram scams. It was a text, and they like did a social scam. They took over like her. Yeah. They took over her friend's profile. Maybe that's my special message tonight. Don't fall for these, and teach your kids about social safety on the internet, because they have access to all this stuff. They're going to use it. It's unfortunate that we have to have these conversations. Like, a lot of my daughters, just peers or siblings or half siblings, it's hard to monitor their social media. They're going to get into different things. They're going to be exposed to who knows what, because somebody else's phone doesn't have the limits. They just all talk about it. There's, triple X everywhere. It's unavoidable. So you have to have those conversations. You can't avoid it. Other countries have those conversations comfortably with their kids since they're little. Like, I've read on different ways of parenting, because you're right. I'm passionate because I didn't have those people from the movie Encanto. They weren't understanding to me. They were like, you need to believe in what we're saying, or you can leave. You're a sinner, and leave. And I'm just like, okay, I guess, guys, bye. Well, right, and I went, I went on a whole life not knowing to communicate.
Yeah, because we get the benefit of where the grandma Alma finally says to Maribel at the end that, she's like, when I was asking for help from her late husband, she's like, because we see that early in the movie where she's like, all these years later, everybody else would assume, oh, she's just strong. And she's sitting alone saying, like, to her late husband, who was murdered years ago, decades ago, saying, like, I wish you were here. I wish we were a team. I had some help. And then she says, oh, well, he sent me you. You were the one. You're the power. You're the special gift that I forgot about. Right. So I want to throw this question out here and see what you think about this. So if we were to say Mirabelle is famous throughout the movie, everybody's like, oh, she's the one without a gift. So what is her gift really? Like, because
Her gift.
Yeah, what is her gift? Because she doesn't have a magic gift that we can see,
to me,
right?
Because to me, it's that like person who's like, I'm annoying about the right things and I need to talk about it. And that person gets everyone. That person gets everyone because everybody's curious eventually. We all have a bad day and we all like knock at a door, and a lot of times we don't know how to answer. So I don't know. Like, I think that it's just like,
it's a great point.
It's that pressing.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but you're saying like the person who asks the wrong questions that end up being the right questions. Like, here's the question that I'm going to throw out at the dinner table and everyone's going to get a little uncomfortable. But when they answer it, they're going to be really glad they answered it, that they have the answer.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard. And that's, it's in so many different places, not just your family, but the last place we should have that feeling is our family. Like, that's what's ironic, that it's such a popular movie. It should make us sad that we're relating to that because damn, man, we need to build our communication because a lot of people don't.
It's where we all identify.
We watch drama. Yeah, we watch drama. We watch all these things and we relate to like, oh, this is really cool, exciting stuff. But like to actually exercise those things, I wanted to end like just to make sure that I said this. There's a book out there and I haven't even read it, but it's called it's like the trauma. No, Your Body Keeps a Score. That one. Mm-hmm. The thing about this movie is that, like it's really hard to have that like healthy balance of like, how do you teach your kids in real life? Because I am like a natural pessimist, not the opposite, and I don't want to do that to them either. But I know that in terms of being mindful about taking time to make a decision, making a better decision for yourself, not just being spontaneous. That takes discipline, that takes learning, at least for them as kids, because we're all rushing into so many things. Just to, emotionally 90 seconds, that's all it takes to at least maybe calm down, try a little bit and try to check in again. But that book says something about seeing how even arguments play out, but in a positive way. In terms of The Body Keeps the Score, there's a part that talks about how it's important to see even the idea of a family or just a model or even a play of kind of like things that you relate to so that we're able to see that there's also a positive outcome to that, not just what happened to us in terms of trauma, because it actually then creates a new path in your brain neurologically. And they have data on that. So like the fact that this movie's out means I'm cool that we're trending into being really more positive, but it's like, how do we practice that? And I could not say, it's just more me making sure that I'm the person that I have needed for myself when I couldn't tell somebody, and that's such a nuanced thing. But I tell my kids, look, at the end of the day, we all grow up and we're going to have it hard. And I'm just trying to shove all these things that maybe will help you in the future. And you might have your own solutions, but great. You have more solutions, suggestions in your back pocket. I had only a couple and I had to guess. And I made really bad decisions for myself that somebody could have just said, hey, that's a bad idea. And I would have been like, oh, okay, then I will do it. Because I was like super easily influenceable. I suggest just so many cool, terrible ideas. So
I love that. And it matches because my theory is that she's like the mentor, almost kind of the therapist of the family, right? And which kind of
there's like a coaching thing that we have to like play with what people give us positively. And that's really hard when it's opposite of what we're saying.
And I thought this the last time that I watched the beginning of it, I thought it's interesting because if her power, I really like how you said it. I hadn't thought about it quite that way. But if her power was involved in like provoking, mentoring, teaching, getting people together, in the beginning when she is talking to those kids and they're like, tell us all about the magical family. We want to know about the madrigals. And she does this whole song. These kids are like hanging on her every word. They're following her around. And then they're like, what's your power? What's your power? What's your power? Or what's your gift or however they say it. It's like I realized, at least this, I don't have any idea if they intended this, but to me, having already seen the ending and then watching it again, I was like, this is her power. This is her gift. She just got these kids together. She got them talking. She told them all this information in a way that they integrated it. And it's like, what does she do throughout the whole movie, right? She bridges people together. She challenges them. She ends up teaching them even things that like she doesn't know. She motivates them into finding, you know. And so as like the communication and the love piece of getting people to sort through stuff. Like that.
Yeah,
like,
it's
and
important.
so it's like a little clue in the beginning. The kids are answering their own question, but we don't know it yet. You know, that's her gift. So anyway, so I thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah, that's a good observation. Yeah, I like that part because she does, like you said, you know, kind of bring everybody together and everything, you know, that happens in terms of, you know, we take it for granted. And that just goes to show you, like, you know, just take a time. It's just a little tiny thing. It's maybe adjusting your opinion, but it'll turn out really nice. And maybe we'll have a weird, fun conversation. But
well, I mean, speaking of conversations, that's a good segue. This has been a great conversation, as always, whenever I get to talk to you. I wanted to ask you what's coming up on with your work, with podcasting or other projects you're doing. What should people be watching for in the show?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of my social media, it's out there on my Instagram, the Arte de Abi. I'll always post mindful, helpful things. I've been trying to collect just like a repertoire of new content that is more around just practical things to continue doing in terms of, again, like the kid security. One of my friends, I was just talking to them and they were saying that just for their own entertainment, just putting information out there because they have fun, you know, designing like decks of info. So just out of nothing, just trying to create more information where it's like, how can I help you? And again, there are so many free resources out there. That's my whole thing, to make sure that everything is free. And that's my biggest platform, where I just continue sharing anything, whether it's local or whatever, whether it's free. So go there, and podcasts, I'll be, you know, releasing that in the next couple months because of that reflection of like just starting to post about a bunch more things in terms of my kid being compromised and things like that. That's super important. It was such a manipulative thing. And it was just like, they're getting very smart, those hackers.
What, and so tell everybody your Insta ID again.
Oh yeah. My Insta is Arte de Abi, ARTEDEABI. And that's where I post anything, even if I release a new episode. We just reached a new section of, you know, bunch of different sections of education. And so I reached my goal of what I wanted my whole thing to be, like this repertoire of like resources in terms of now more things on sex and safety and sex neutrality, sex education, just in terms of so many different things that we're too much in a rush to look at. And hopefully I'm a good influence for anybody, at least look at that has to teach themselves.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, it's great work that you're doing, and glad to get it out there. I'll put the name of the link to the Instagram in the show notes as well. People can find it there. So, and then if anybody wants to reach out as well, if you've got feelings about this or you've got other things you'd like us to be focusing on here in 2022 or whatever year it is, then hit me up at Break-A-Brain on Twitter is a good way to do it, or email me dwighthurst@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, everybody, and thank you, Abi.
Thank you. Bye. Good night.
Thank you for listening to the Courtemp Arts Podcast Network. To listen to more Courtemp Arts shows, visit courtemparts.com.